that Donald Trump is staying on the 2024 ballot in that state. Remember the Fourth Amendment challenge that was lodged in Colorado, in Minnesota, and in Michigan. All three of those have gone Trump's way. Joining me now is Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project and a former clerk to Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Mike, your reaction, these are three rulings now that have tossed aside, at least now, for now, the 14th Amendment argument that the left was saying was their ticket to keeping Trump off the ballot. Tell us what this means.
Well, I think this biased Denver district court judge out here blinked, because I was certain sitting through the trial, the week-long trial, that she was going to rule against President Trump. And I think that she saw the political backlash, and she saw that three other courts in three different states ruled against this Democrat theory to try to toss President Trump off the ballot. They impeached him twice, indicted him 4 times, 2 illegal gag orders, tried to bankrupt him with a bogus civil fraud lawsuit. That only helped President Trump with the polls, and this was their legal Hail Mary to just take Trump off the ballot, and now they're 0 for 3.
So this is District Judge Sarah Wallace, and it's the third ruling, as I said, in just a little over a week. And these lawsuits were filed by a left-leaning group that included a bunch of, never Trumpers, Democrats, and so forth. But here's a key quote from the judge's ruling. She said, "To be clear, part of the court's decision is its reluctance to embrace an interpretation which would disqualify a presidential candidate without a clear, unmistakable indication that such is the intent of Section 3, the Section 3 of the Section 3, I believe, in the constitutional argument of the 14th Amendment." Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. And this judge came back from the break because we could not get anything worse for our country to simply take the leading presidential candidate off the ballot based upon a bogus partisan legal theory that the Democrats are peddling here. The only way to disqualify an office holder under Section 3 of the Constitution, according to case law that's been on the books for over 150 years, is to bring federal criminal charges for insurrection or rebellion, have a jury unanimously find them guilty with evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. The district judge has to convict, and that conviction has to be upheld on appeal. That's the only route. And there's no chance that President Trump was involved with an insurrection on January 6th. It was a lawful protest permitted by the National Park Service that got out of control and turned into a riot.
Now, everyone should understand, so the Minnesota Supreme Court ruling on this was just last week, again, said that Trump could remain on the primary ballot because political parties have the sole choice over whether he appears. And then the Michigan judge who ruled on this said that Congress is the proper forum for deciding whether Section 3 of the 14th Amendment applies. So 3 different judges, 3 different parts of the country. And Mike, I now want to bring in an attorney who defended Trump in this, former Colorado Secretary of State, Scott Gessler. I mean, Scott, I think it was so ironic that all of these individuals who are out there calling Trump a force against democracy, this is dangerous, tyrannical impulses of Donald Trump. Yet this is precisely what this radical interpretation of Section 3, Article of the 14th Amendment, the Constitution, would have done by ripping him off the ballot. It's stunning to me.
That's exactly the case. Unfortunately, this judge allowed them to go through a full 5-day hearing and a lot further in the process than this should have ever gone. But ultimately, she made the right decision, and that decision is that the people of the United States, we're the ones who get to choose who our president is going to be, not the courts. And it's about, I mean, this whole series of cases, I mean, it relies on some pretty unusual theories from a law that hasn't been enforced for probably over 100 years. So it was a desperate attempt to really prevent people from being able to vote for the person they want.
And Mike, I've said this time and again, but it's worth repeating tonight, is that the only way the left will stop, if they're stopped by either being, a judge's ruling, and it has to be an emphatic ruling, or a sweeping electoral victory by Americans who just say, you know, enough of this. This isn't even common sense. Forget being a constitutional scholar. This makes no sense. But, you know, judges one after the other have come in and said, cannot do this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is going to be a tactical retreat by the Democrats. Like you said, Laura, they play for keeps. They will do whatever it takes to win. If you thought that 2020 was bad with BLM riots, brace ourselves for what they have in store in 2024 with their Hamas and BLM supporters.
And when we look at this, the way this case is being argued, and look, they're going to not stop. So, you know, you argue this case and you win in Colorado. But what's the next hill that has to be climbed for President Trump? It's a former state secretary.
Well, from a legal standpoint, I think Colorado was probably their best chance. I think this is their high water mark. I'm sure they'll try appealing it to the Colorado Supreme Court, but I don't think they'll have any more luck there than they've had anywhere else across the country. So I'm guessing they'll probably start cooking up a new legal theory that no one's thought of yet, because it's so far out to the left wing that no one will think of it. But this, I think, I hope, is their high water mark.
Scott, were you surprised if you saw it in this new, I believe this was this was the Washington Post Monmouth poll that shows that Republican primary voters in New Hampshire, I think it's the third most important issue for them is the Justice Department's unfair application of the law. It was the open border, it was inflation, high prices, and I think that came in either third or fourth, ahead of crime. What does that tell you about what Republican primary voters are seeing? And that's in, again, the quirky state of New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think people are really concerned about fundamental fairness in this country. And you know, we even saw this in Colorado, where the Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State here, instead of sort of being neutral and an honest broker, as soon as this complaint was filed, she came out and accused President Trump of all kinds of things, and it was pretty clear she was biased from the start. So I think people are really concerned about the weaponization of the Department of Justice, of a lot of our public officials, you know, particularly ones who just hate President Trump. They want to do everything they can to stop him, and they're using the law rather than the democratic processes.
And Mike, nothing is worse than that Judge Ingraham. I just think that case in New York, the law clerk, the judge, the smirking for the camera, Letitia James, of all the cases, do you think that is perhaps the worst and the most obviously biased, Mike?
I mean, they're blatantly biased, but the problem is he's clearly going to rule against Trump and try to bankrupt his business. Thank God we have people like Elise Stefanik, a congressional leader who filed an ethics complaint against this biased Manhattan judge, and we need to start fighting back against this lawfare and election interference.
Scott and Mike, both of you, thank you so much.